Welcome to the Czech Republic, the architectural heart of Europe. A country veiled in stories and history, adorned by Gothic monasteries, Baroque churches, Renaissance palaces, and expansive decorated gardens. The Czech Republic holds unparalleled status as a leading historical destination. Laying your eyes on the massive walls of medieval castles, or finding yourself in the labyrinths of historical centers of Czech towns, you'll feel like Alice when she fell through the looking glass. A powerful and tangible link with history is the reason 12 remarkable Czech historical sites have been written into the UNESCO World Heritage List. Although time takes its toll, the noble heritage of Czech history withstands this test of time and shines as in centuries past, blending gracefully with modern lifestyle, standing side by side with state-of-the-art buildings. In the Czech Republic, you can immerse yourself in the richness of the past and bathe in the glory of the present. As it was long ago, the heart of Europe is a place of inspiration, of beautiful tales of courage, of love, and of discovery. The royal town of Český Krumlov is high up on the must-see list. Here, visitors can paddle the romantic river Vltava by canoe and admire the historical center rising high above the meandering river that envelops it. As if time has stood still, wonderfully preserved Renaissance and Baroque houses tell tales of when the Czech lands were ruled by the Witkovci, Rožmberk, and Schwarzenberg aristocratic lineages. Český Krumlov owes its unusually rich historical legacy to these families. Krumlov's Old Town is dominated by the second largest castle complex in Europe. In the 16th century, the original Gothic castle was converted into a Renaissance palace, resplendent with vast Italian-style gardens. Today, the gardens are maintained in the style of an English park. Don't be misled by the quiet simplicity of the nearby village of Holášovice. Its storied history dates back 8 centuries. Experience it firsthand when studying the immaculately preserved original village plan. One can admire so-called South Bohemian folk Baroque on the picturesque facades of these rustic buildings. Originating at the end of the 19th century, this architectural style blends classicism and Baroque in a folk manner. Uneducated craftsmen lovingly and precisely replicated the work of great architectural masters, without the master's benefit of mathematics and geometry. This legacy of the past still resonates in today's life, where traditional craftsmen exhibit their skills. And come summer, you can even experience the festive Celtic celebrations of the summer solstice. Moravian Kroměříž served as the summer residence to the archbishops of Olomouc from the 12th to the 19th century. Their influence strongly resonates in the layout and design of the town. Known for its intense development of education, Kroměříž was nicknamed the Athens of Hannah. There is really plenty to see here. The historical Baroque palace, commissioned by Karl II in the 17th century, was built by Italian architects Lucchese and Tencala. Richly decorated salons not only served bishops, but more recently, Czech film director Miloš Forman. He featured this fantastic palace as one of the settings in his Academy Award-winning film, Amadeus. Though Mozart may no longer be with us, his music in any case lives on with a sensational festival of classical music at the end of each summer. The adjacent flower gardens, one of the best preserved in Europe, invites guests to explore its leafy architectural history. East of Prague, the tale of Kutná Hora is one of treasure and fame. The development of the town is closely linked to the discovery of silver, from which the first Prague coins were made. Thanks to its silver, Kutná Hora was Europe's wealthiest town in the 13th century. During the 14th century, the sovereign family stayed here and seriously considered making Kutná Hora the capital of the entire empire. Their ambitions were significant: 2 Gothic cathedrals in a single town, something entirely unique in Europe, giving the town an air of importance. The Cathedral of St. Barbara, the patron saint of miners, is strong competition in size to the cathedral in Prague Castle. Near the second cathedral, the Cathedral of Our Lady at Sedlec, you'll find a unique ossuary. Its unusual decor is made up of the skeletal remains of 2 plague epidemics and the victims of the Hussite War. In total, it holds the remains of more than 40,000 souls. From the kingdom of death, we move to the kingdom of life. The Lednica-Valtica cultural landscape, situated in the southernmost corner of Moravia. The motto of the Liechtensteins, "The light of torches does not glow more than the light of diamonds," may be interpreted literally or as a metaphor. The lavishly decorated classical and neo-Gothic style of the castle unabashedly boasts the wealth of its owners. Applying the British Anglo-Chinese philosophy of gardening to a 300 square kilometer landscape, the Liechtensteins fulfilled their dreams of creating the world's largest garden. This also makes the garden the largest UNESCO heritage site in the Czech Republic. Diverse structures within make the garden a unique open-air museum. A triumphal arch, the colonnades, or an Islamic minaret, among other things. Enjoy these sights while sipping a glass of good Moravian white wine that has won praise and victory in prestigious international wine competitions. Chronicles dating back to the 10th century document the merchant town of Litomyšl. The center is dominated by an imposing 16th century arcade palace in the Italian style that, despite several latter alterations, is maintained in almost its original state. Unlike its Italian counterparts, the palace's arcades are uniquely placed on individual stories. The word unique has many meanings in Litomyšl. Case in point, its one-of-a-kind graffiti decor. One may uncover the long-gone lives of Czech nobility while roaming these decorated chambers. But don't be fooled. The palace did not serve gentry alone. World-renowned music composer Bedřich Smetana was born in one of the palace buildings to the family of a brewer. Smetana is not the only famous native. In nearby Svitavy, Otakar Schindler, the savior of hundreds of Jewish victims of the Nazis, was brought into the world. Nearby, the Baroque Basilica Minor on the Holy Hill is just the beginning of the splendid journey through the archdiocese city of Olomouc, which until the 17th century was the second largest city in the country. The importance of Olomouc has been suppressed by various wars, but never been lost, and today reflects its important cultural legacy. The 35-meter-high Holy Trinity column from the 18th century celebrates God, symbolizing gratitude for the end of the plague epidemic in Moravia. Local craftsmen carved the Baroque statues lining it, making it a purely local monument. The measurements of the column made the Prussian army avoid it while bombarding the town in 1758. Or perhaps it was just the intense aroma of traditional Olomouc cheese that drove the soldiers away. That is something you'll have to find out for yourself. Preserved statues decorate the square in Telch, a town strongly linked to the merchant routes in the southwest of Moravia. The town lies among the ambling Telch stream. The stream's widening not only created formidable water fortification, but also inspired Telch's nickname, Moravian Venice. Its historical center is among the most valuable preservations in Moravia. A keen observer should not miss the original Baroque castle, which was later rebuilt by Italian architects into a Renaissance palace. The influential Lord Zacharias of Hradec lived here in the 16th century. Telch's current beauty is owed in large part to the rapid economic development Zacharias fostered, as well as his extensive business contacts. The Gothic Church of St. Jacob, or the late Roman tower of the Church of the Holy Spirit, should not be missed. And if you plan your visit for the end of July, you can enjoy the festive atmosphere of Telch's annual folk festival. As with architectural styles, religions in the Czech Republic have always blended naturally and dynamically. Třebíč, in western Moravia, is a perfect example of this. It is simultaneously an important center of both Christian and Jewish culture. Benedictine monks had the Basilica of St. Prokop built in the 12th century. Its Roman and Gothic elements blend seamlessly. The monastery also served as a fortress during times of religious wars, or as an armory, storage, stables, and even as a brewery. By the way, beer still flows freely here, especially around the beginning of May, when you can partake in the biggest beer folk festival. The vast Jewish community in Třebíč is commemorated in the form of the Old Jewish Quarter, made up of common houses. Along with Prague's Jewish Quarter, Třebíč is the only Jewish monument on the UNESCO World Heritage Sites list outside of Israel. The Jewish town is accompanied by a vast Jewish cemetery with thousands of headstones. Near Žďár nad Sázavou, you'll find the pilgrimage church of St. Jan of Nepomuc at Zelená Hora. Here, in the 17th century, the Czech builder Jan Blažej Santini Eichel paid his compliments to the Prague vicar Jan of Nepomuc, who was tortured to death in the 14th century. Legend has it that a crown and 5 stars appeared above his deceased body. Santini used the motif of this mystical legacy throughout the building. The church has a 5-pinnacle ground plan. It may be entered through 5 entrances, and once within, you will discover 5 altars with 5 angels above. Besides its excellent Christian symbolism, the church is an example of Baroque Gothic style. Santini intermingled the Baroque style of his era with the Gothic style that reigned during the life of Jan of Nepomuk. The church at Zelena Hora is much more than breathtaking. The beauty of this incredible edifice leaves one speechless. The builders of the Czech Republic have never been overlooked. In 1930, Mr. and Mrs. Tugendhat commissioned the founder of the functionalist architecture, Ludwig Mise van der Rohe, to build a villa for them in Brno. It defies both time and space. The building has 3 stories and was furnished by van der Rohe himself. Windows in the main living space retract into the floor, allowing the interior of the villa to blend with its natural surroundings. A very unique and, in its time, extremely expensive onyx wall allows the sun to permeate the work area, changing its hue according to the time of day. At the onset of World War II, Mr. and Mrs. Tugendhat were forced to leave the Czech Republic due to the graduating Nazi threat, but their villa stands as a monument protected by UNESCO, witnessing the origins of a modern living concept. All roads in the Czech Republic lead to Prague, the traditional seat of political power and education. The peaceful current of the river Vltava is a mute witness to more than 10 centuries of development. 12 bridges proudly span its banks, the most famous of which, the Charles Bridge, is decorated by 30 Baroque statues. The bridge bears the name of Emperor Charles IV, who in the 14th century was responsible for extensive development of education, trade, and construction throughout the city. Prague saw further development in the 16th century under the reign of Emperor Rudolf II. He invited a number of builders from across Europe to add their unique touches to the already renowned city. Prague is nicknamed the City of 100 Spires, Golden Town, or the Mother of all towns, and it is no wonder. The captivating genius loci of Prague have inspired artists throughout the centuries. Built on almost 900 hectares, the historical center is dominated by Prague Castle and its St. Vitus Gothic Cathedral. There is probably no better example of the blending of time and architecture than Prague Castle. The building was under construction for almost 600 years, from 1344 through to 1929, when its western section was completed. Prague has never closed its gates to new influences, and so alongside Gothic cathedrals, Baroque churches, and Renaissance palaces, you'll also discover elements of Cubism and Classicism. Even today, Prague openly welcomes the latest architectural trends. Prague inspires the world, and at the same time is inspired by the world in return. Its pulsating life charges visitors and residents alike with its energy. Nowhere else will you find such synergy between historic and modern lifestyles. Visit Prague soon, and don't be surprised finding yourself returning time and time again. The Czech Republic proudly contributes 12 historical gems to UNESCO's World Heritage List. Come and experience the unique symphony of Czech beauty. Listen to rich tales of Europe's history. Have your dreams come true in the Czech Republic.
Turkey's heartland, the high plateau of central Anatolia, has been inhabited for at least 8 millennia. Among its most famous regions is Cappadocia, mentioned in the Bible and known today for its eerie volcanic landscape and delicious local wines. When Mount Erciyes, near Kayseri, was an active volcano, it spewed tons of lava and volcanic ash over the region. The ash solidified into soft rock that was later eroded by wind and water into valleys, plateaus, gorges, caves, and pinnacles. Early Christians settled in Cappadocia to practice their religion in peace. St. Paul visited here, and many monks and hermits sought the solitude of its lonely valleys filled with caves. Today, Cappadocia is Turkey's most visually striking region. Visitors come from around the world to tour the Göreme Open Air Museum, a World Heritage Site sheltering dozens of medieval cave churches. Many of the church interiors are decorated with colorful frescoes of religious scenes. Perhaps the finest are the dark church, called Karanlık Kilise in Turkish, and the church of the Buckle, or Tokalı Kilise. Not far from Göreme is Zelve, another open-air museum. 3 steep valleys come together to form this historic area, which is also filled with ancient cave churches and dwellings. The Zelve valleys were actually inhabited until the 1950s. By that time, erosion had threatened the structural integrity of many caves, and there was a risk of collapse, so the inhabitants were resettled nearby. Dominating the Cappadocian skyline is the natural fortress of Uçhisar, rising above the town of the same name. This great rock promontory, 60 meters high, was hollowed out and made into a fortress by early settlers. Today, visitors climb to the top through a system of caves and passages to enjoy the spectacular panoramic views from the top. The town of Avanos, on the banks of the Kızılırmak River, is famous for its colorful Cappadocian carpets and red clay pottery. Among the strangest sights in this unusual region are the underground cities, vast labyrinths of tunnels, caves, and passages reaching 7 and 8 stories into the earth. They were inhabited during the 7th and 8th centuries by local Christians seeking refuge from invading Arab armies. 36 underground cities, large and small, have been discovered in Cappadocia. Each underground refuge has kitchens, wine and olive presses, dining halls, stables, sleeping rooms, storage areas, deep wells, ventilation shafts, and even churches. The entire complex could be closed off to enemies by rolling huge stone wheel doors across the entrance tunnels. Konya, to the west of Cappadocia, was an important city in Roman times. During the Middle Ages, it was one of the chief way stations on the Silk Road, and also the capital of a flourishing empire established by the Seljuk Turks. At the height of the Seljuk power of the 13th century, Konya was home to Mevlana Celaleddin Rumi, one of the world's greatest mystic poets and philosophers. Rumi's disciples became the whirling dervishes, Sufi mystics who seek spiritual communion with God through a captivating circular dance. A common sight in Cappadocia are the caravanserais, great fortified structures built to encourage commerce along the Silk Road. Wealthy Seljuk Turkish benefactors, both men and women, provided funds to build them. They also provided daily food for caravaneers, fodder for the animals, mosques for worship, baths, and medical and veterinary care. Caravanserais were built about 20 kilometers apart, a day's travel by camel caravan. Over 100 of these fine buildings can still be seen in Turkey, many of them in Cappadocia.
Quedlinburg, die wohl schönste Stadt des Harzes und eine der schönsten Städte Deutschlands. 8 Jahrhunderte Fachwerkbauweise, malerische Gassen und berühmte romanische Kirchen.
Hallo, folgen Sie uns. Lernen Sie mit uns Quedlinburg kennen.
Und genießen Sie die besondere Atmosphäre dieser mittelalterlichen Stadt.
Beginnen wir unsere Tour auf dem Schlossberg,
Von dem man übrigens einen herrlichen Ausblick über die Dächer Quedlinburgs hat.
Auf diesem Sandsteinfelsen befinden sich die fast 1000-jährige Stiftskirche San Servati mit ihren beiden markanten Türmen, das dreiflügelige Renaissanceschloss mit seinem Schlossmuseum, das ehemalige Wohnhaus der Stiftsfrauen und eine wunderschöne Gartenanlage. Dieser Gebäudekomplex gilt als das Wahrzeichen der Stadt Quedlinburg.
Die Stiftskirche gehört zu den bedeutendsten romanischen Kirchenbauten in Deutschland.
und ihr Hauptportal ist eines der ältesten deutschen Säulenportale. Die Türklinke ist halb Schwein, halb Hund.
Vielleicht sollte man den inneren Schweinehund überwinden und in die Kirche gehen?
In der Schatzkammer der Stiftskirche kann man auch den mehr als 1000 Jahre alten Domschatz besichtigen.
Die Krypta der Stiftskirche San Servati zählt zu den einzigartigen hochromanischen Bauten im Land. In ihr befinden sich die Grablegen König Heinrich I. und seiner Gemahlin, der heiligen Mathilde.
Das mit Gold, Silber und Juwelen geschmückte Samuel-Evangeliar. Es ist das wertvollste Stück.
Und wurde im 9. Jahrhundert mit goldener Tinte geschrieben. Und hier ein Kamm aus Elfenbein des ersten deutschen Königs Heinrich I.
Gleich gegenüber der Stiftskirche im Renaissanceschloss aus dem 16. und 17. Jahrhundert ist das Museum untergebracht. Es vermittelt einen Überblick über die Frühgeschichte und die frühmittelalterliche Besiedlung des Gebietes.
Schau mal hier im Thronsaal die beeindruckende Stuckdecke.
Alle Räume sind sehr prunkvoll ausgestaltet, von Barock über Rokoko bis Empire-Stil.
Der Raubgrafenkasten. Er war ein Gefängnis.
Der Legende nach soll er für Graf Albrecht II. Von Regenstein angefertigt worden sein. Er soll hier fast 2 Jahre lang eingesessen haben.
Wie konnte er darin nur so lange überleben?
Gleich unterhalb der Burg steht auf einem kleinen Platz ein stattliches Patrizierhaus mit prächtigem Säulenportikus. In der zweiten Hälfte des 16. Jahrhunderts wurde es für eine wohlhabende Bürgerfamilie errichtet.
Am 2. Juli 1724 wurde hier der Dichter Friedrich Gottlieb Klopstock als erstes von 17 Kindern geboren.
Klopstock ist einer der bedeutendsten und einflussreichsten Schriftsteller des 18. Jahrhunderts.
In unmittelbarer Nähe befindet sich die Leinl-Feininger-Galerie. Sie beherbergt den umfangreichsten geschlossenen Bestand von Grafiken dieses bedeutenden Künstlers der klassischen Moderne. Noch vom Schlossberg beeindruckt geht es hinab in die historische Altstadt mit ihren kopfsteingepflasterten Straßen, verwinkelten Gassen und kleinen Plätzen. Vorbei an der Blasiekirche, deren ältesten Teile aus dem 10. Jahrhundert stammen.
Heute ist die Kirche ein hervorragender Kulturstandort. Ausstellungen, Konzerte und auch Theateraufführungen finden jedes Jahr hier statt.
Ein Gotteshaus mit viel Leben.
Mehr als 1300 Fachwerkhäuser aus 8 Jahrhunderten befinden sich in Quedlinburg. Hier in der Wortgasse 3 steht die Perle dieses Flächendenkmals, der Ständerbau. Das älteste Fachwerkhaus Quedlinburgs. Untersuchungen haben eine Bauzeit um das Jahr 1310 ergeben. Zwischen Markt und Wort überquert eine der merkwürdigsten Brücken das Bodesumpfland und ermöglicht seit dem 13. Jahrhundert einen trockenen Zugang zum Markt.
Aber wo ist die Brücke?
Wir stehen darauf. Im Laufe der Zeit senkte sich die Brücke durch den weichen Boden und war schließlich nicht mehr sichtbar. Jetzt gibt es nur noch die Reste der Brückenpfeiler.
Und die befinden sich heute unter dem Straßenpflaster. Auf dem historischen Marktplatz von Quedlinburg angekommen, fallen einem gleich das alte Rathaus von 1310 und die Roland-Statue auf, die im Spätmittelalter Bürgerstolz und städtische Freiheit symbolisierte, sowie zahlreiche farbenfrohe Fachwerkhäuser aus dem 16. bis 18. Jahrhundert.
Ein wunderschöner und eindrucksvoller Markt.
Von hier aus kann man schon sehr gut hinter dem Rathaus die Türme der Marktkirche St. Benedikti sehen.
Entlang der breiten Straße, einer Fußgängerzone mit vielen Geschäften, führt ein unscheinbarer enger und dunkler Gang in eine der romantischsten Gassen der Altstadt.
Das ist also der Schuhhof.
Hier lebten damals viele Schuhmacher und boten ihre Waren an. Diese Häuser existierten bereits im 13. Jahrhundert.
Und jetzt gehen wir durch die Hölle?
Ja, so ähnlich.
Wie der Name Hölle entstand, ist nicht so einfach herzuleiten. Sicher ist nur, dass in der Pölle ein einzelnes Haus stand, was eine Urkunde aus dem Jahre 1233 belegt. Darin heißt es: Domus in Polna que appellatur infernus, zu Deutsch das Haus in der Pölle, das Hölle genannt wird.
Die Straßenbezeichnungen Pölle und Stieg weisen darauf hin, dass die Gegend früher morastisch war.
Die Pölle ist also eine feuchte Senke, über die man trockenen Fußes nur auf einem Stieg kam, oder?
Ja, das stimmt.
Weiter geht es in Richtung Quedlinburger Neustadt. Diese entstand um 1200 vor den Mauern der Altstadt, getrennt durch einen Mühlgraben. Hauptverkehrsader waren und sind der Steinweg und die Pölkenstraße, die sich am Mathildenbrunnen treffen.
Der Mathildenbrunnen soll an die heilige Mathilde erinnern. Sie war die Gemahlin König Heinrichs I.
Nicht weit vom Neustadter Marktplatz befindet sich die Kirche St. Nikolai. Sie ist die Pfarrkirche der Neustadt in Quedlinburg. Am großräumigen Kirchhof, um den sich malerische Fachwerkhäuschen aus allen Jahrhunderten reihen, erhebt sich die gewaltige Kirche.
Sie wurde um 1200 von Bürgern der Neustadt erbaut und als romanische Basilika begründet.
Nach einer Legende stiftete ein Schäfer beide Türme der Nikolaikirche, nachdem er einen Schatz gefunden hatte.
Wie jede mittelalterliche Stadt war auch Quedlinburg von einer Stadtmauer und zahlreichen Türmen umgeben.
Die erste sehr einfache Stadtmauer wurde bereits um das Jahr 1150 errichtet.
Die Straße heißt hinter der Mauer, wie der Name schon sagt, liegt sie hinter der Stadtmauer der Neustadt.
Dieser Teil der Stadtmauer ist erstaunlich gut erhalten. Sogenannte Wehrgänge führten von Turm zu Turm. So konnte die Stadt bei Angriffen sehr gut verteidigt werden.
Übrigens, von 922 bis 1207 sind mindestens 67 Besuche von deutschen Kaisern und Königen in Quedlinburg nachweisbar.
Sodass sich die Stadt Quedlinburg heute mit Recht als alte Kaiserstadt bezeichnen kann.
Wir hoffen, unser Rundgang durch Quedlinburg hat ebenfalls Lust auf einen Besuch gemacht und wir sehen uns hier einmal wieder. Tschüss!
Bis zum nächsten Mal. Tschüss!